The expanded NFL playoffs. What are we doing here? The expanded NFL playoffs have been around for 2 years now, and it has been nothing short of lame. On paper, more games and more teams seemed like a good idea. In practice, there aren't 7 teams from each conference worthy of that honor in most years. Hell, there were barely 6 in some seasons. It is important to note that expanding the NFL playoffs only did one thing. That was drag the 2 seed out of the bye and force them to play the 7 seed at home. The other matchups have all stayed the same. However, the allure of an extra playoff game has been firmly destroyed by what it actually consists of. And that is a really good team at home going up against cannon fodder. The difference in quality between the 3 and 6 seeds is almost always less than the gap between the 6th and 7th place sides. Seriously, name one team in the playoffs that the Pittsburgh Steelers or Philadelphia Eagles would have had a shot against. What are we doing here, NFL? So, the entire concept of the expanded NFL playoffs is based on 2 fallacies. The first is the fallacy of good teams get left out of the playoffs. The second fallacy is that an extra spot keeps more teams engaged at the end of the season. Let's start by dissecting the first fallacy we mentioned. The nicest way to describe the 7 seeds in this year's playoffs would be flawed but average. Last season saw the 8-8 Chicago Bears make the dance alongside the 11-5 Indianapolis Colts. Now I know what you're saying, you're going, you see, good teams do make the playoffs through the expanded playoffs. Well, slow your roll there. What the Colts win total doesn't show is the reality that Indy won 9 games in 2020 against teams with a record of 500 or worse. And the score of their wildcard matchup against the Bills, while looking like a 3-point game on paper, wasn't all that close. Before that, the last double-digit win side to miss out on the playoffs happened in 2015 when the Ryan Fitzpatrick-led New York Jets couldn't get in. Of course, the NFL's fetishization of divisions meant the 9-7 Houston Texans still qualified, but that's a whole different thing. In most years, the expanded NFL playoffs would have simply let in a very mediocre team. Now, let's turn our attention to the second fallacy. More playoff teams hasn't equaled more teams being engaged at the end of the season. The 7th seed in the NFC has been clinched with a week to spare. Meanwhile, there was drama between the Steelers and Colts this year, but both sides were so brutal to watch that it's hard to say this was good for the league. Especially factor in the whole Chargers-Raiders tie scenario. At the end of the day, expanded NFL playoffs, what are we doing here? The extra games aren't fun to watch for most fans, and it only seems to exist to make money for owners and give ESPN a Monday Night Football game to broadcast. Neither directly benefits fans as it stands. NFL, here's the deal. Either fix this or put things back the way they were. And while we're at it, you can go ahead and stop calling Wildcard Weekend Super. Anyway, that does it for this installment of What Are We Doing Here? You can go ahead and let me know why I am wrong in the comments section below. Until next time, I am Cheyenne Hollis. This is the Touchback, and be sure to hashtag take it out to the 25.